turn this down. I don't want to get copywritten for Beethoven. Can they even do that for Beethoven? I don't know. Well, my bookish friends, welcome to another episode of The Leaf Sonata. I am Marquita, your host. I am so happy that you decided to sit down and spend some time with me while I talk about my latest read. Actually, I've had quite a few reads, but I really just haven't wanted to share my thoughts on them. I really just want to share what really stood out and I thought was a really great read, and that is The Stranger, which I knew hardly anything about before I started reading it. I hope I get the name of this YouTuber correct and I forget her first name, but is it Hibbs of the Mundanities of Life? I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. I think this is one of her favorite books. I believe she lives in Saudi Arabia and she's a doctor. I just loved her. I love her vlogs. Oh, I love her vlogs. So she was recommending this book. All I remember is that she mentioned it and I wrote it down, and I'm so glad because it does lean a bit toward the philosophical end of literature, which I really, really enjoy because one of my favorite books of all time is Ayn Rand's Anthem. Oh, I love that book so much. And not that I always agree with the philosophy that I read, but it's just so captivating. And I really, really enjoy getting a new perspective of things because possibly someone else does see. Well, I know someone else sees it that way, but maybe there's a majority that can relate to the points and the viewpoints, the perspective that I can't. And I love people, and I really want to understand as many people as I possibly can so that we can find some common ground, and that's what humanity is about. So back to The Stranger. I knew nothing about it except a man committed a murder, and that's really it. But what got me, really, that was it. That's what I remember from her vlog, was that he committed murder, and it really made you think. That's what I got. So it popped up at my thrift store, and thankfully I have several local bookstores living in like a quad city area, and most books are like $1, $2. And this was one I was really surprised to see. So the cover, it does tell you a bit because, as I'm mentioning, this is a philosophical book. So it is about the human perspective. What is the human perspective? And so this man has committed a murder. And my initial thoughts of him was he was a psychopath from the first line. So from the first line of the book, I'll tell you why I thought he was a psychopath. And these are just my thoughts. This does not make it true. I'm sure there's probably plenty of commentary about this book because it was published, I think, in French in 1942. And then this translation of The Stranger is by Stuart Gilbert in 1946. And that is the first of these published for vintage books. So this is a pretty old book. And I know as technology advances, translations become more accurate. And I appreciate that. But this did it for me. So as I mentioned, the first line I was thinking, because I knew this was about a murder. So from this first line and then paragraph, I thought, this guy must be a psychopath or a sociopath. This is why. Here's the first line. Mother died today. The rest of the paragraph, or maybe yesterday, I can't be sure. The telegram from the home says, your mother passed away, funeral tomorrow, deep sympathy, which leaves the matter doubtful. It could have been yesterday. Are you serious? This is your mother? So I was thinking, okay, maybe he has mommy issues. So I had to find out. So I kept reading, and I just didn't know what to make of the character, but in a very good sense. He is not a likable person. From my perspective, he's not a likable person. But as I read more and more about him, I started to understand more. You really don't get his line of thinking, in my opinion, but I started to see who he was as a human more and more, and not necessarily doubt myself, but open my mind to the possibility, but that my perspective, well, I mean, I know this, but my perspective is not always right, which means that someone else's is not always wrong. Well, it just reminded me, but in a deeper sense, because we're talking about murder. And his responses were not the typical response of someone that has murdered someone. And so it makes me wonder, like, how deep this do are we going to get to figure out what's going on with him? And then at some point I realized this is just who he is. Who am I to say he shouldn't be the way he is, and he shouldn't think the way that he is? Who am I to judge? And so that's why I really like the picture, or because it's not really a portrait, but I just, what do they call it? The cover design. I really appreciate the cover design because this is a book about humanity, and each person, each set of eyes, each soul is going to see this book differently. So, from the first line, I'd already made up my mind that this was not a likable character. I still don't think that he's a likable character, but he's human and he still has value, he still has worth. This sat with me all week. It's really what I want to share about it, is that the stranger, because I don't want to tell too much, and not only the main character, because the narrative is written in first person. Is it written in first person the whole time? Yes. Yes. But it made me also question the other characters in his life. You have his so-called friends, intimate acquaintances. I just really didn't find a lot of people to be likable. And then the one person I did find to be fairly likable, I questioned her motives. Just this really sat with me for quite a while. I get why it's a classic. I do think that it's one of those must reads because of how it sits with you later. And the end of the story is still not the end of the story. Am I saying that right? The end of the story does not feel like, just doesn't feel like it. It's so hard to put that in words. It's like I guess I'm thinking of the same sense where you grieve, and in the process of grieving, that person is still with you. And even after the grief, their memories are still with you. But not in that haunting like way when you have grief. You know what I mean? That's how this sat with me. I've been thinking about it all week. And I hate to tell so much that it gives anything away, but I think the back does it justice. It's just an ordinary man in Algiers. I knew it was in Europe, but in Algiers, it's summertime, and he commits, like it says, a pointless murder, and it reaches its climax after his trial. It's just good. It you will question yourself and how you see people and things, and if you don't, you should. Like, you should. You really, really should. I enjoyed this very much. So that was my most recent read. And my pile of possibilities, I think I was mentioning that before I covered the bird up because he was getting loud. And there are quite a bit of them. Some of them I had help picking out from one of my booktube buddies. Hey Doug, thank you very much. And I'm still on that science fiction kick, but I really want to read more classics. So one that I'm hoping, and this is for the rest of winter, and this is gonna be for my mood. I just grabbed a big stack that I think I'm gonna enjoy in the winter. But one is missing that Doug recommended. He recommended the Brothers Karamazov. I have yet to figure out how to pronounce it. As many times as I've heard it, it's never stuck with me. So the Brothers K is one I'm going to see if my library has. But first, on the list, I'm not going to read these in any order, is Robert Heinlein's Rocket Ship Galileo, which is supposed to be one of his first books. And I think it was a short story first. Love Robert Heinlein. Read Strangers in a Strange World and really enjoyed that. And another will be Logan's Run by William Nolan and George Clayton Johnson, which I said I wasn't going to mention what some of the ones I've been reading, but I recently read, and I wasn't crazy about it, Brave New World. And I know that Logan's Run had to have been inspired by Brave New World. So I think I'm really going to enjoy this because I like the movie. I really enjoy the movie. And then there's George Orwell, 1984. And Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451. I'm very fortunate to be able to find many of these classics for $1 or $2 in my local libraries and thrift stores. And then some newer books are Orbital, which one was it? The Booker Prize? Pulitzer Prize? A bunch of prizes by Samantha Harvey, and it sounds like it's right up my alley because I'm always looking for a romantic style of writing. Oh, I've just heard so much good about it. And I'm one of those people, I have no subscriptions, but my sister has been telling me over and over that I should get Netflix, if not just to watch Damsel. Well, I found the book, and it's by Evelyn Skye, and it is a dragon book. Okay, so I won't read the back. My sister explained to me that the young woman in the book, I think she thought she was going to be married to a handsome prince, but my sister's trying not to give much of it away, but she just said that it took an unexpected turns and she pretty much had to fight for her life. And I think this is like a ritual that they have. Yes. And so it just sounded really good. And I do love reading adventure. Kind of some fantasy, sci-fi fantasy. So this sounded right up my alley, but I think it's mainly just fantasy. And a book that I picked up and put down because it didn't quite go in the direction I thought it was going to go, because I thought this was mainly a heavy sci-fi, but it's not. It's All This and More by Pang Shepard. I picked this up in August, I think, when it was released, and read just a few pages and just said this wasn't what I wanted right now, but I think I'm going to take some time and read it before the end of winter, so before spring. And I'm hoping to keep Mace Windu by my bedside. I have purposefully been only reading a few pages a day, like just a few, because it is so good that I don't want the story to end quickly. Oh, you just can't imagine how many times I've watched Star Wars. I just stopped counting because I love the story so much, and this is giving the same vibes, the same storyline. I mean, it's Star Wars, so I'm loving it, and I'm slowly going to read this, have this by my bedside to read in the evening. But that is all that I want to share with you guys today. I know my stuff ain't traditional, but it's how I do stuff. And I hope you are enjoying my content. If you have any other recommendations, because I may I've been thinking about maybe adding maybe 2 more to this list of possibilities, pile of possibilities. Leave it down in the comments below and I'll add to it, because I'm pretty sure by March I'm gonna need some more to read, and it's possible I already have it on my shelf. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, spending time with me. Let me know what you've been reading in the comments below, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye bye.